Hi, I'm Callie Patrick with A Journey into Health. Today I'm going to share a little bit with you about how I coach for lasting change. First, some change truths. You're not a failure, and this can be really hard to take in if you have been unsuccessful in your change efforts for a number of years, if you've tried a number of different methods. Even if you've been unsuccessful making changes in the past, what I'd like to suggest is that it is not about your inability to change, but rather that something was missing. It's like trying to put together a puzzle and having a missing piece, right? So when you have all the right tools, all the right pieces at your disposal, lasting change is possible, and it's generally much, much easier than when you're missing some part of this process. Change is inherently a complex and multifaceted process, right? It's like that puzzle with a lot of different pieces that have to come together for success to happen. So when you're missing a piece of this process, of the change process, this is really fascinating. It will lead to a predictable, undesired outcome. I'll say that again. When you're missing a piece of the change process, you will have a predictable, undesired outcome. And of course, this undermines short and long-term success. But what's very interesting about this process is that we can look at the undesired outcome and go back and pull the thread, so to speak, and find what is the piece that was missing. Based on the undesirable outcome, we can go back and find what was the piece that was missing and then fill in that gap. So what are some of these puzzle pieces? Well, I will suggest that you can't be successful in your change when you're not really clear about what you want. This can be really difficult, right? We might say we know what we want, but deep down, that's not really the vision, right? We'll say something that's very specific, like, I want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to lose 100 pounds, or whatever it is. But really, why? What is it that we're after that's underneath, right? So we have to be really clear about what we want. And it's not just the surface level stuff, right? This kind of leads into my second point here. Without knowing ourselves, right? Why do we want to lose that? What do we value? What is guiding that desire? Right? And then, of course, once we have that vision and that clarity around where we want to go and who we are, what maybe we are believing that prevents us from doing that, or how we sabotage ourselves, then we need the tools that are right for us as individuals. Right? I love that Monty Python video from Life of Brian, the section where they talk about, yes, we are all individuals. We all think for ourselves, and sometimes we get on these prescriptions or these plans that were really not designed for us as a unique human being. And so we need to investigate lots of different avenues and take the bits that really work for us. True motivation, I say true motivation, because oftentimes our habits that we consider negative or bad, they give us some pleasure. They fulfill some need or some other desire that's competing. And so it's useful, first of all, to recognize that, but it's also interesting to look at what it is we're saying we want and to see how motivating that is compared to what we're already doing. So true motivation would mean that we have a higher intrinsic motivation, I would say, to make the change. Without support and encouragement, it is very difficult to make a change. If you would like to get better sleep and you know that going to bed an hour earlier is really something that would help you, but your entire family is jumping on the bed and all the lights are on in the house and TVs are on and games are being played, then, that's really hard. Similarly, if you're in a work environment where you're trying to maybe cut out alcohol or a certain kind of food, but you're engaged in a role where you have to socialize, that can be challenging. And lastly, without some specific feasible steps for the change, right? A lot of people will try to do things, what I call cold turkey, right? I'm going to give up coffee starting tomorrow. Well, that's great, and that works for very few people, right? We need to look at what your life is like and make these small changes that you can be successful at, and then we build on those. So these are some components about how we can make change be a little more methodical and a little more thought out in terms of this change process. So let's be a bit more concrete here about the change process. This is actually a model about change management that is used in business. And you know what? Change is change, right? And sometimes we have a whole organization in our minds and in our bodies, in our systems, that need to be moved in a certain direction. And that all needs to happen together. And so these pieces, when we break it down, of vision, of consensus, of having skills and incentives and resources at our disposal, having a specific plan, these all contribute to the big picture of successful change. And we need to acknowledge each of these pieces in the change process, especially when we are trying to make a change to our health, to our wellness, when we have lives and patterns that are already embedded. They're already a part of our internal culture. So when you work with a coach, whether that's me or someone else, I'll suggest that what you really want is an experienced guide. So by a guide, I mean someone who is going to walk beside you and ask you really good questions. Questions that make you go, oh, I never really asked myself that. Let me see what I think about it. Or, oh, I never put these two things together, but now that you ask me that, it's very clear. So when we can see the patterns of our behavior, that's when we can really start to change them. An experienced guide would also help you get clarity on what's missing. So that part of the process that's been holding you back, and then give you specialized tools that are unique for your journey, for your life, for your situation, that help move you to where you want to go, step by step, right? When I say an experienced guide, experience can be certifications and learning and number of years of experience and things like that. I will just mention as well that all of the things that I help people with now, I do so because I have personal experience with them, right? So although my experience might be different, I have walked that walk. So I feel that to some extent, this is a different kind of experience and can be really useful when working with something that's very personal and challenging, right? Because you can know that I have been there, and I know that change is not easy. So a little bit about how we would work together. Assuming we had an introductory conversation and we decided that we wanted to work together, one of the first things we would do is a holistic assessment of your current situation and your health issues. We want to help you get clarity. Where is the gap between your current situation and your desired outcome, right? And so we look at all those different components of successful change. We'll look at your outcomes, the outcomes you've had in the past, whether they were successful for a period of time, how they were unsuccessful, right? To help identify that missing puzzle piece. And then we work with customized mind-body techniques to help you address that particular gap. We call this practice. After a period of practice, we look at what's working and what's not, right? So we look at where have we made progress, right? That can be a new insight, right? Insights are so useful because we cannot change what we cannot see. Right? That might be, oh, I'm sleeping better, I'm eating better, I'm in less pain. It might be actual, tangible, measurable sensations or feelings about your condition, right? If there are places where there is still a challenge, we investigate those as issues. We investigate them with curiosity, right? So that this is not about beating ourselves up and being judgmental. There is still something that's not quite right for you. And so depending on whether we're successful or not with the techniques and with some practice, then we either repeat the things that are working and we bring that more into our culture of our lives, or we refine the pieces that aren't working so much so that we continue to explore and make progress. So the successes bring us closer, right, to our vision. And as we work together, what happens is that over time you start to peel away the layers of the onion, right? We might hone in on the same gap for a while, or we might say, okay, yeah, we're solid here now, but there's this other piece that's really keeping us from moving forward. So it's this iterative exploratory process, and it is completely experiential. So when you're ready for this very personal, exploratory, and experiential journey, when you're ready to see the transformation that is completely possible, then go ahead and schedule some time with me. When you do that, you'll be asked to answer some questions about your health concern, and the answers to those questions will guide our conversation to some extent. We'll talk for about 20 minutes, either via phone or an easy-to-use video conferencing tool, and see if we're a good fit to work together. I hope to hear from you soon.